Hey, really glad you joined. I wanted to talk about fear today because there's a lot of it running around if you're like me in the air, and sometimes it's hard to decipher whose fear it is. Is it really mine? Am I picking it up from someone else? Am I picking it up in the global collective? So just wanted to stop down and talk about how I handle fear and would love to hear from you about how you handle fear. So, there was an acronym that I learned at one time that fear stood for false evidence appearing real. And I would say that is totally true. But also, along with that acronym went the thought of feelings aren't facts, and perhaps they're not, but it used to really piss me off because when I was feeling fear, anxiety, that darkness, like something ominous is lurking or something horrible is going to happen, or projecting out into my future about what is going to happen that's going to destroy me or have a negative impact on me or someone I love, or scroll back into the past and look at what happened in the past and how I have to be fearful of that in my present or my future. Yeah, that's not always the healthy thing for me. So, what I've learned about fear is to breathe into the fear. First of all, notice it. Notice my pulse rate's up. Notice my shoulders are hiked. Notice my jaw is tight. Notice my face is pierced. Half the time I walk around in fear and I don't even realize I am feeling fear. So I get in the moment and I realize what I'm feeling, that fear. And then I breathe into that fear. I take a longer breath in and an even longer breath out, and really go inside and feel in my body where I'm holding the fear. And then I have a conversation oftentimes with that little one in my heart. And I go direct to her and I suss out her feeling of the fear on a scale of 1 to 10. Where is that fear? And what is that fear? Is that fear really in my present moment? Or is it coming from some kind of projection, either forward or back? Is there something that I can easily control to stop down or at least turn down the volume of the fear? Oftentimes for me, that's something is playing in the background, or I've listened to something or am listening to something that creates fear and anxiety. Oftentimes it comes from news, and that's not even the straightforward news in the mainstream. It's alternative news because there seems to be a lot of projection and a lot of experts handing me their ideas of what's actually happening. So then that teaches me to either turn those things off if it's physical, or if it's not physical, if it's emotional or psychological, I need to turn down the volume on that by going within and really feeling into that fear and noticing it, and then asking questions. Is there anything I can do right now to control this? Is this really happening? Is this really present in my present? And most oftentimes, it's not really happening in my moment. So then I have to rein it in and make a decision. What would I really rather feel? Well, actually, I'd rather feel some soothing. And then I go through some steps of what soothes me. So definitely calming my breath down. Oftentimes it's grabbing my pink fuzzy blanket and putting it around my body. Sometimes it's putting on a hoodie and putting the hood over my head. Sometimes it's just stepping up and going over to play with my dog, and her toy, just to shift the energy. Or it could just be standing up, hopping, clapping, getting my hula hoop on. But sometimes I'm really just stuck in the fear. So when that happens, I go deep into the feeling and I just feel that fear and I project, okay, what would happen if that would really occur? And asking those questions sometimes blows it up so big that it just pops. So I'm sure you're feeling it too. I just had a trip, a business trip I had to take, and I wasn't so excited about flying commercially with everything that I'm seeing, all the airplanes that are having incidents or crashes, which is really sad. But, I was really amped up for a few days before my flight, and I had to work again with the fear that was present and that I was projecting. And when I got to the airport, I decided to just gently smile. So rather than, a tight, pierced face and kind of a subtle frown, I went the opposite and I relaxed my face and I made sure I had a gentle smile, not a plastic rah-rah cheerleader smile, just a gentle, content smile. And not only did it have an effect on me and the way that I was feeling, but I noticed it also had a feeling on the people that were passing by. And as I sat waiting for the plane to start to board, the anxiety came up again. And I reminded myself that I only had that day, I only had that minute in the present moment. I was safe. And then once we boarded the plane and I found my seat, I found that anxiety coming back up again. I have never seen so many passengers pay attention to the emergency announcements and watch the video on being prepared in case of emergency. And that didn't slip by, but I thought, wow, we are all together in this moment and we don't have control over what may happen in this plane, but we do have control. Certainly, I have control on what I want to put out. So I began to send love to every passenger aboard that plane and every crew member and the pilots. And I surrendered. I surrendered into the fear of what if something happens. And I started marking gratitude for all the things that I had experienced up to this point in my life, and particularly the things that are easy to be grateful for. And that boosted my mood, and it also started to lift the anxiety. And we took off, and it was smooth, and it was a smooth trip the whole way through. But I did have to do some work. And I think that's one of the things that you might be realizing as well, that you have to do some work to stay balanced in the climate of today. And there's still so much beauty and so much grace in front of us as we move forward on our earthly walk, one step at a time and together. So another thing that helps me with the fear is grounding. And that's really getting into my body and getting with what is rather than what I'm projecting. And there are different processes to experience when you're trying to ground. And if you would like to try that out, I would be happy to have you try a free grounding session. If you go to susangold.us, you can just check me out there and send me an email, info@susangold.us, to schedule a grounding session. There's never been a better time to be very cognizant of how you can ground for yourself in the moment. And I really send you so much love, so much compassion, and the reminder that we are in this together. Take good care, and I'll see you next time.